Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Retiring is challenging enough already, but if you're about to retire now you face the possibility of trying to do so during a global economic meltdown. Does that sound a little bit intimidating? Well, the good news is Philip Statler is here today to walk you through it. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is, of course, president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. And Philip, gosh, not to be all doom and gloom, but news from the World Economic Forum indicates that the global outlook isn't really great, isn't really strong. But the good news is there's always planning we can do to work around it, right?
That's right. We can always do planning. And you're right. I mean, there's just so much uncertainty right now with inflation and recession talks and unemployment numbers. And so a lot of stuff coming out and, uncertainty. The markets don't like uncertainty, Jen.
Right.
And so we continue to see that.
Gosh, yeah.
And it's like, man, I wish we could just get back to those days when everything was doing well and the markets were going up and away and we didn't have to worry about inflation or unemployment or any of those things. But that's not where we are right now.
No.
We are in a different place and we've got to weather through it. And we've got some tips today to talk about some things that folks can do to get themselves ready for the unknown, if you can say it any better way.
Right. Well, and let's just get some thoughts here on just exactly what we're talking about. And I've got some audio here I want to play. Really, the World Economic Forum at the 2023 World Economic Forum, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres.
We need cooperation, yet we face fragmentation. And I'm not here to sugarcoat the scale of that challenge or the sorry state of our world. We can't confront problems unless we look them squarely in the eye. And we are looking into the eye of a Category 5 hurricane.
Now that phrase, Philip, Category 5 hurricane, when you look at what we could potentially be looking at here with our global economy, that sounds pretty intimidating, doesn't it?
It really does. I hope he doesn't think it's going to be a Cat 5 recession.
Good night.
But hey, look. But one of the things I think he said at the very beginning that I find interesting is that we need corporations, and yet they are demonized, right? Yep. They are looked down on because they make money or other things, and so but we need them. That's the capitalism that we thrive on. That's what made us a great nation over the years. And we need to remember that. And so often people want to throw darts at them or, shoot guns at them and that kind of stuff, but they're there for a reason. But he's right. I mean, we are looking at some huge headwinds going forward into 2023. And it just brings so much uncertainty. We don't know, because we talk about this in my workshops. We've got folks on the right saying, okay, look, it's going to be a terrible, terrible recession. And you can go all the way over here to the left. I can find people that'll say it's going to be a soft landing. We're not going to see much of an issue. It's going to be painful just because our growth is slowing down. And then you've got everybody in the middle, right? So nobody's got that crystal ball, Jen, that says, okay, this is what we're going to have.
Right.
And prepare for it. We have to prepare for the unknown. And like he said, we have to prepare as if we're getting ready for a hurricane. And we know what that's like here and get ready for that to be a Cat 5 hurricane. And so that's what we need to prepare for.
And I think there's a good point here. Even if these economic conditions don't materialize in the way that they're saying it possibly could, you're not worse off for doing this preparation. You're not in a worse position if you do the work, you get your plans in place, and then everything ends up being okay. It just might need some additional changes, for you later on. But Philip, talk a little bit about when we talk about preparing for the possibility of a Cat 5 global economic meltdown or recession. Talk about what goes into that. What do we mean by that?
Well, we mean that two things. One, that means not just the United States is going to feel that pain. And we already know that from what we've seen in the pandemic situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen
Sure.
everybody's economy start to slide. But what he's saying is that it's not going to be country by country. It's going to be the world as a whole is going to go through this together. And the issue is going to be we all have to fight. We all will fight for our own little piece. And I think what he's doing is he's saying, look, it's not going to be this country or that country. We need to come together and unite because all of us are going to feel that pain of that recessionary time. And the bigger countries, basically, he's saying, need to help some of the smaller countries out throughout this process. But here's the bottom line, Jen, is you got a plan, right? We don't know what's going to happen, but if you don't have a plan for what could happen, for the disastrous things that could be there, then surely you will get caught up in that whirlwind of the hurricane and go down with it. And that's what we don't want to see.
Right.
We want to see folks prepared. That's why we developed our core retirement design to help people make sure that the risk they have in their portfolio truly matches up with the risk they should have in their portfolio. Not too much and not enough. We want to be just in the right place for that economic disaster that seems to be brewing on the horizon. I mean, nobody knows, but it sure seems to be lining up that way. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement phone consultation, where we'll help you walk through that process to make sure that you're on the right foot for the retirement you always dreamed of. That number one more time is 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. And Philip, one of the things that we have to talk about, if in fact we do end up having a little bit more economic trouble, sometimes there are layoffs associated with companies that are struggling and the idea of a recession. So Philip, for people who maybe they're not planning to retire this year, but it happens because they're forced out of the workforce earlier than planned, maybe because of what's going on with the global economy, maybe it's your own personal situation, your health or whatever. How do we make sure we're prepared in case we end up having to retire earlier than we'd planned?
Well, I think one is sitting down with somebody and making sure you've got an income plan in place that can be adjusted, right? What if? So run through some scenarios. What if I have to retire now? Or what if I lose my job this year? What are my options? It may be hard to get a job that replaces my current income. I might can find a job, but it may not be at the same income level. So what can I do to prepare for that? And that's really part of the process we walk through when we do our income planning, is to make sure that we run some different scenarios, especially if folks are concerned about certain things, right? We want to run scenarios that are based on those outcomes and give them that peace of mind that, hey, look, we'll be okay. And hopefully they will be okay. I mean, if they won't, well, that's going to be a truth that we have to kind of deal with head on, right? It's kind of like he said, you know what? We want to deal with the truth head on. It may not be what we like, but we need to know what it is so we can at least prepare as best we can for it.
Right. Absolutely. Talk a little bit about your process for helping create a comprehensive retirement plan that can help manage risks like volatility and economic downturns, because it's more, Philip, than just saving for retirement. I know your process goes a lot further beyond just this idea of, have I saved enough?
Right. So we look at three things when we walk through our process. One is I believe everybody needs to know where they are. Because if you don't know where you are, you don't need to know where you need to get to. And so we do an analysis on your current portfolio to determine how much risk is there. And we compare that to how much risk you're comfortable with. How much risk are you willing to take? And we compare those two and make sure they line up. Second, we want to make sure we've got an income plan in place. We want to make sure that you know, based on income coming in, whether that's Social Security or pension, or there's nothing, right, for a while. We want to build that income plan so you get some certainty around retirement. And lastly, we want to look at taxes. We want to make sure that we minimize your lifetime taxes in retirement, however we can. And so we take a look at that to determine what that may look like And we call that our core retirement design.
Mm-hmm.
We help you design the retirement you always wanted.
So really, whether it's about uncertainty, about rising costs, putting the squeeze on your bank account, which we've all felt, looming tax increases, or the threat of a global economic crisis, there could always be a financial storm brewing on the horizon, and we cannot stop these things from happening, Philip, but we can put strategies in place that can help us navigate around them. That's really the big idea here, right?
That is absolutely the big idea. I mean, if you think back to the last couple major bear markets we've had, folks, it takes 4 to 6 years to come out of them.
Mm-hmm.
No one likes the idea of going through a recession. But the reality is the economy cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes recessions happen, and sometimes we go through this booming time. But right now, it seems like a recession is what we're looming out there. So when the economy is struggling, are you prepared for the worst case scenario? Folks, today I'm offering you 30 minutes of my time. Free phone consultation or Zoom meeting. We'll get on there. We'll look at your current circumstances and see if you are ready for what may happen down the road. Are you ready to retire? Are you ready for a recession? Are you ready for inflation to continue at the rate it's going? There's a lot of uncertainty out there. I want to help you bring some certainty to your current situation. Give us a call, 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement phone consultation. Folks, it's really important that, one, you understand how much risk you have in your portfolio. Don't wake up like folks I know in 2008 thought that they were, a moderate investor. When the moderate investor was down 30-something%, they found out they were really a conservative or moderately conservative. Let's find that out now before the market starts to decline. Give us a call. Let's walk through our core retirement design, free 30 minutes. We'll talk about where you're at, what you need to be doing to make sure you're ready to retire. That number again is 863-285-3815. Our core retirement design, 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Just a few years after the passage of the Secure Act, we've got more changes in store now that Secure Act 2.0 is in effect. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Philip Statler at Statler Financial often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you've saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Philip has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with income you need for as long as you live? Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial to find out. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Philip today. 863-285-3815. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. And Philip, I know we've joked about this before. Secure Act 2.0, first one passed at the end of 2019, and then they started talking about we weren't sure if this was a sequel or a do-over. Whatever it is, it's now our reality. Secure Act 2.0 is here, and there are some more changes that we need to be talking about. So, Philip, that's what we're going to get into. And, of course, I don't know if we ever determined, is this a sequel? Is this a do-over? Is it a little bit of both? What do you think?
It's a sequel. It's a let's add a little bit to it. Let's fine tune some things is what I would say it is. But
All right.
have you ever noticed, Jen, how they always want to slip these things in December?
Yeah. When we're a little bit
it's
distracted.
Everybody's distracted with the holidays. And what does Congress do? Boom. They give us a new law that provisions take effect in 2023, the year we're in. And it's like, okay, could you give us just a little bit more time?
Yes.
And who do you think actually read the bill?
It was Philip.
Anybody?
It was almost 4,000 pages long. No, nobody read that whole thing. Nobody read that whole thing. No, you're right. It was part of the omnibus bill, which is kind of that catch-all spending bill that gets passed at the end of the year. I guess, Philip, it's kind of like everybody's scrambling to use all their PTO before the year ends. This is what Congress does too. We're scrambling to get it all thrown in there. But you're right.
That's a good analogy. Yeah. So
you're right.
But this is times like this, Jen. I got to tell you. This is times that I'm so thankful that I'm part of Ed Slott's Master Elite IRA program because, man, he has been so good about getting information out to us. And I would suggest anybody, because anybody can go to his website, right, and look through some of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I would encourage folks to do that because he's got a lot of good information out there. And if nothing else, subscribe to his newsletter because it's pretty good too and keeps you up to date on IRA stuff. So, but it is definitely thankful for him paying attention to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You can get some good information. I think the website is irahelp.com for anybody who wants to go do a little looking around to see what kind of information is available there, especially as you're getting close to retirement age. But you're right, Philip. So this is a resource for you that you were able to find out about or hear about some of these changes, even though everything passed at a time when we were at our most distracted, which is the week between Christmas and New Year, which is when Congress always passes things, and most of us don't even know what day it is because we're just trying to survive the holidays, season.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then here we have, throughout the entire year, we'll continue to find things and unpack things from this legislation. But I'm going to go through some of the key changes, Philip, with this new legislation and get your take on some of this. So a couple of the things that we see now under Secure Act 2.0, allowing employees under age 59 and a half to make an emergency withdrawal of up to $1,000 without penalty. And thankfully, mercifully, Philip, that's the only half age that I'm going to talk about through all these changes. What is it with Congress and these half birthdays and these half ages?
No. Well, that's the one they left in there from original Secure Act is it still, you can't take anything out without a penalty until you're 59 and a half.
Right.
I think this was, I don't know, maybe this was kindness on their part to say, hey, look, a lot of people don't have any kind of emergency money saved up. They're living paycheck to paycheck and they're afraid to put money in their 401k because what if I need it for an emergency?
Right.
I think this maybe lends itself to giving some people I have access to $1,000 if I need it. Mm-hmm. Still got to pay tax on it, but you wouldn't have to pay the 10% penalty. It's
not the penalty.
No.
Well, and Philip, so while you're on that a little bit, let's just talk about this whole idea of when you are saving for retirement versus building up your emergency savings, there's this factor of liquidity. And there's this whole idea of trade-offs, right? So if you're putting your money in something that's long-term for your retirement, you maybe don't have the liquidity, but there are some other features. But there is a need, especially really for anybody at any age, Philip, to have some sort of liquid savings that they can get their hands on in the event of emergency. I think that's just a general principle of planning that we talk about quite a bit on this show.
It really is. It really is. And unfortunately, most people don't do it. You're right.
Yeah.
We spend paycheck to paycheck instead of saving. And so, the general rule of thumb is that you should have, the real generally, you should have 6 months of income saved up. Now, I'd be thankful to see people have 3 months of income saved up, right? So that would help them cover that 3 months of maybe, because if somebody got laid off now, they'd still have unemployment. They have some other things to kick in, but you want to have ideally 6 months or more just in an emergency account that you can put your hands on if you needed it.
Yeah, just one of those principles that I thought we should touch on real quickly while we were on the subject. Talking a little bit about changes with Secure Act 2.0. Some additional encouragement for retirement savings here, increasing part-time workers' access to retirement accounts, allowing employers to make contributions to 401k plans for employees who are paying down student loans. They're not saving for retirement, but they're still able to get that company match by the employer contribution, and then requiring automatic 401k enrollment for certain companies. There are some exclusions here, but really making this an opt-out instead of an opt-in. So I think the message here, Philip, is encouraging more people to put money in some of this long-term retirement savings.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's look at, you said most companies. Well, there are some, but I mean, if you have 10 or fewer workers, that's the only people that are exempt.
Sure.
I mean, and yeah, there's a lot of those small businesses like that, but there's a lot of companies that are, quote, small businesses that have more than 10 employees. So,
yeah, that's true.
And they've got a 401k plan. So, I look at that and say, okay, it makes some sense to me to automatically enroll people. But I look at it from the employer standpoint too, as a business
tough.
owner. And
yeah.
I look at the headache that could cause down the road. But, it is that deal. And I like the fact that they make people start to do that. I mean, in here, our state employees, they automatically have to put 3% in for their retirement. So why shouldn't other employees?
There you go. There you go. Philip, making it easier for annuities to become an income option for retirees and creating some tax credits for small businesses that let military spouses enroll right away in retirement plans and qualify for immediate vesting of employer matches. So it looks like, again, trying to increase flexibility in some areas, but then, we had that word require in one of those earlier provisions. So increase flexibility in some places, but reduce it, I guess, in others is what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some good stuff in there, helping people for the most part. Let me tell you though, there's one that I kind of like you haven't mentioned yet, and that it allows for you to take and roll over tax and penalty free your 529 plans.
Mm-hmm.
That have been around for at least 15 years. So let's say, hey, look, you got a child that didn't use all their 529 plan. Now, if it's been in existence at least 15 years and it hadn't been used, you can actually roll that into your Roth IRA and grow it tax-free for your own retirement. I kind of like that one because now it doesn't say, hey, like, if my kid doesn't go to college, now I got an out, right? So
right.
I kind of like that provision, Jen.
I wonder, and I'm glad you brought that one up because that's another area where we might have a little bit more flexibility. I wonder, though, Philip, as time passes on, what other changes might be made to one like that? Because right now the accounts do need to be at least 15 years old, but you can see where there could be some potential changes where they say, okay, now we have too many people who are taking advantage of this. Now we're going to have to put some additional strings attached or put some additional requirements on before you can take that money out. That's one of those things that we'll just have to see what happens as time goes on. But certainly I imagine, Philip, this would really open up some opportunities for people who were trying to do the right thing, trying to do what they saw as a good thing to help their grandkids save for college. And then for whatever reason, that money is stuck in an account that they can't really access any other way.
That's right. And so I really like that one. And it gives people it takes away an excuse for not starting a 529 plan.
Yeah.
Because now, hey, I can put in my Roth if my kid doesn't go to school. So
yeah, there you go.
I really like that one, and so, yeah, there's a lot of other stuff that's in that Secure Act 2.0 as well. One of the other ones, which doesn't make much sense to me, Jen, I'll be honest, is the catch-up contribution. It doesn't start until 2025.
Right.
But for people ages 60 to 63,
like I told you though, but it's not 62 3/4. It's not a a fraction age. So at least there's whole ages.
But people in that age, 60 to 63, after 2025, are allowed to put an extra 10 grand into their 401k plans. And it's like, okay, well, they're not going to retire till 67. So why don't you expand that a little bit? I just don't get that one. Mm-hmm. But hey, it's not up for me to get, I guess, what Congress does. But
it's their world. We're just living in it, right?
That's right.
That's what it feels like. Well,
hey, the other one we probably need to mention real quick before we close out
RMDs.
This little section is RMDs, right?
Yep.
So in 2023, this year, they raised the age by 1 year. So now you don't have to be 72, you got to be 73. 73 to take your required minimum distribution. And that number will go to age 75 in 2033. Now that's a long time, but
right.
But at least they put some forward thinking into this bill, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. And having a handle on your age for required minimum distributions, even when we have a little bit more flexibility now for people who turned 72 in 2023 and thought, oh my goodness, I have to start taking this. Now we've got some flexibility. They don't have to actually do that now. But just talk a little bit about how important it is for people to stay on top of some of these changes, because we don't want to be getting it wrong when it comes to some of these rules that are in place for taking money out of our accounts. And this is why, Philip, we need to have a strategy for taking money out of these accounts. And that's where your planning process comes into play, right?
Absolutely, Jen. That's where we stay on top of it for you, help you through that process. And again, that's why I developed the core retirement design to help people, number one, design the retirement they always dreamed of, but two, make sure that they're on track in both risk, taxes, and income. Those are the three pillars that you need to have and understand when you head into retirement. So I'm offering you a 30-minute, no obligation phone consultation to make sure that you are on the right path for the retirement you always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. Folks, it's that simple. 30 minutes with me on the phone, answering your questions to make sure that you are where you need to be to get ready for retirement. So if you're 5 years out from retirement or you're already retired, give us a call at 863-285-3815 and let's have a 30-minute conversation about where you are and what you need to be doing. 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler with Statler Financial Services. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back with more on Secure Act 2.0 coming up next.
Philip Statler at Statler Financial often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you've saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Philip has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with income you need for as long as you live? Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial to find out. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Philip today. 863-285-3815. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, talking today about Secure Act 2.0, because just a few years after the original was passed at the end of 2019, we now have more changes to our retirement planning system here in the U.S. with Secure Act 2.0. And Philip, we've been talking about this a little bit here on the show today, but let's kind of recap some of the most important proposals that you're seeing here with these changes under Secure Act 2.0.
So I think if I look through, there's a couple. One is the change in the required minimum distribution age. You know, they added one more year for this year. So now if you don't have to take an RMD till you're 73, and they extended that out to age 75, 10 years from now in 2033. But the other part that's in there that we forget about is, you know, if you don't take your required minimum distribution, you get penalized. That penalty right now is 50%. Now so part of Secure Act 2.0 is they're reducing that penalty for not taking your RMD from 50% down to 25%. So a pretty significant reduction. Though I will tell you that in the time I've been in the tax and accounting industry and in the financial planning industry, I'm not seeing anybody ever have to pay that penalty because there's a waiver form within the tax return that if you say, hey, look, I forgot, forgive me, they do. I'm not seeing them ever not forgive somebody. So just FYI there, but I think that's makes sense. Why take more money out of somebody's pocket for not taking it to catch up,
Mm-hmm.
But the other one I like is I like the whole fact that I can now take a 529 plan that's been around for 15 years. And if my child doesn't go to college or my grandchild doesn't go to college, I can take that money and roll it into a Roth IRA. I think that takes away the excuse for not doing a 529 plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but Philip, when it comes to some of these changes, how important is it for retirees to be following changes like what we've seen under Secure Act 2.0, or do we need to worry about this until it's time for us to be getting into retirement? How much should we be following some of this?
I think that whenever you retire, you need to start paying attention, right? Because the rules can change on you. And I think just because the rule is out there doesn't mean we have to wait, right? We don't have to wait. There's nothing that says that you have to wait until you're 73 to start taking your required minimum distribution. You can start taking money out anytime after 59 and a half without having to pay a penalty. Now, yes, you have to pay the tax. But here's a neat little thing that somebody shared with me is that, they changed the Secure Act 1, the first one, changed the required minimum distribution age from 70 and a half to 72.
Mm-hmm.
And who do you think pays more taxes?
Oh.
The average retiree that takes their RMD at 70 and a half will pay 18% less in taxes than if they waited till 72.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to think that number is going to go up if they wait till 73. What it does for me is it extends out my planning time, right? Because now I got more time to put a plan together to reduce folks' taxes in retirement. And that's a huge deal because we know taxes are going up. We know that they're going up in 2026 automatically without us doing a thing. They're going to go up. And I feel like based on the amount of debt we have, interest rates going up, we're going to have to pay more in taxes. Taxes are going to have to go up. And I don't want you to have to pay more. So there are strategies in place that folks can use to help reduce those taxes in the long haul. Short-term pain for long-term gain. That's the whole deal. And everybody should be looking at that, Jen. They should be looking at how can I reduce my taxes over my lifetime? And there are strategies out there to do that. And we walk people through it every time.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. And Philip, here's another thing that we've pointed out here with these changes with Secure Act 2.0. The main goal for Secure Act and Secure Act 2.0 is to help more people do a better job saving for retirement. So let's talk a little bit about how this should look for people who are getting close to retirement. How do they know if they've saved enough and if they're saving it in the right types of places?
Jen, I can't tell you recently how many folks I've sat down with that said, look, I think I probably need $2 million to retire, or I think I need $1 million to retire. Mm-hmm. That's, to me, looking at it the wrong way. What we need to look at is how much income do you need to retire? And then we work backwards. Because what I find is that most people really don't need $1 million or $2 million. They need 500. They need 250 because they have a pension, or they need 750. You don't know what that number is until you put the plan in place that says, here's my income. What do I need to get back to? Folks, and this is the whole reason that I developed my core retirement design. Just give us a call at 863-285-3815 and schedule your core retirement phone consultation. We'll spend 30 minutes with you, walking you through our process and determining if you're on the right track for the retirement you always dreamed of. That number again is 863-285-3815. Folks, don't procrastinate. Get it done today. It's a simple 30-minute phone call. 863-285-3815. 3815.
Philip Statler is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, talking today about changes under Secure Act 2.0, and so important that we get that analysis done and we figure out what it is that we need to have saved for retirement. Are we doing this in the right places? And aside from having enough saved, and I guess, before we move on, Philip, we kind of touched on this earlier, but your money, you have different needs for your money, and when you're saving for certain things, Philip, sometimes you need more liquidity for your emergency savings. You need liquidity. You need a little less liquidity for some of that longer term savings, like for your retirement. But just talk a little bit about those different goals for our money, Philip, whether it's liquidity or growth or preservation. How do you help people break down those different places or goals that their money needs to have as they are trying to save for something like retirement?
So a lot of that, we base that on how our income plan ends up being put together. But the basics are this, right? We need to have that emergency money. That money you can put your hands on if something drastic happens, and you can get a hold of it, whether that's $20,000, $50,000, it's a comfort level thing for a lot of folks, Jen. But we have that conversation of what does it need to be for them? And then, we need to have some protected money, some money that's not going to be affected if the market goes down in value. And we're facing that right now, right? The market's headed down, it seems to be this year. And so we need some money that's going to be protected long-term from that strategy of the market going down. And then we need some money that's going to grow. It's going to have a little risk tied to it, but it's going to be there to help us keep up with inflation, right? It's going to be our risk bucket. So we need to have something in all of those different buckets. The question is how much? And that's where our process goes into play to determine what needs to be in each of those buckets to protect you for your retirement.
And when we talk about preparing for retirement, making sure we've got our income covered, all of this requires planning. And the fact is, because these things don't happen by accident, having enough income, having it positioned the right way, it doesn't just happen by accident. It happens through planning. And nearly 70% of Americans are missing that written financial plan. And Philip, people without a plan, they do tend to feel a little less confident about the future.
Yeah, I know a lot of you are worried about you haven't saved enough or you won't even be able to retire. I know most of you don't have a written financial income plan. I mean, I know statistically, that's just the case. It's not there. And a written financial plan can help you feel much more financially stable because it gives you a roadmap to run on where you can see it in black and white. So you don't have to be one of those folks worried if your money's going to last as long as you need it to, even afford to retire. Folks, we have a process in place to help make sure the income's going to be there. It's our core retirement design. We're offering today 30-minute free phone consultation. We call it our core retirement phone analysis. Give us a call right now. We'll make sure that where you are is where you need to be. If not, we'll give you some tweaks of things that can be done. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Don't procrastinate. 2023, let's make it a good year no matter what happens. 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. We've got more insights coming up on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
This is your captain speaking. We're expecting fair skies, a smooth flight, and about a 85% chance or so of making it to our destination. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the flight.
Would you stay on that plane? Of course not. Well, do you have a retirement plan where you probably won't run out of money? You need a plan that no matter the destination will help you get to and through retirement successfully. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services can design a plan to help you get to your destination as comfortably as possible, even if Wall Street or the economy causes some turbulence. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team to start working on your plan. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Get a plan designed to allow you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the retirement you've worked so hard for. 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services, advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services Incorporated, a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Thanks for joining us today. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here alongside Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. And Philip, you know there are things you're not supposed to bring up at a dinner party, and I don't know if Joyce has to remind you things. There are times when Jeff and I are going somewhere, and I'm like, please don't. Here's a couple things to please not bring up when we get there. And there are a couple topics that are just uncomfortable. You don't even want to talk about them with your kids or your financial professional or your spouse. But these are things that are important to think about as you get close to retirement. So, Philip, we're just going to have to bite the bullet. We're going to dig into our top 5 for this week. It comes from Forbes. 5 most taboo topics in retirement. So are you ready for this, Philip?
I think I am. I'm assuming these are things nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to think they even exist, right?
Right. We just want to ignore it, but we have to talk about them. So here we go. Number 5, because we go backwards. We go from 5 down to number 1 on our top 5. Number 5 on our list is your mental health in retirement. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen with people struggling, Philip, with maybe a loss of identity or isolation after they leave their careers behind, because we identify who we are by our job. It's really hard, isn't it?
We do. That's so true. And so I think that's one of the things that you're right. Nobody wants to talk about that. Where people, I've seen people that have retired and, within a year, they're in a funk. They just don't really know what to do, or they're unhappy there. And they think that, okay, I'm going to go back to work. And a lot of them they'll just start to go back to work. But I think back to, my uncle. My uncle, he worked, I think he was like 70 or 72 before he finally retired.
Yeah.
This is very true. I see it. I've seen it with some of my uncles. I've seen it with some of my clients. They feel like when they retire, or if they quit working, they're going to die.
Mm-hmm. Gosh.
And I think that weighs on them to keep doing something. And so, and we have this conversation with people with our clients that haven't retired yet, that are starting to work on that. And my question to them is always, okay, so what is your plan to occupy your time when you retire? Because that does become the problem, right? Is now you don't have to get up at 5 o'clock to be at work by 7 or 7:30. So you have no schedule, and that all plays into depression, mental health, that whole thing. And so it's an area that people need to be proactively working against. And the way to do that is not just have a financial plan, but have a time plan. What are you going to do when you retire?
Philip, let's talk about the next one on our list. We are working our way backwards. So number 4 on our list of taboo topics in retirement is divorce. Over the past 30 years, the divorce rate after age 50 has doubled in the U.S., and this is something that causes emotional and financial upheaval at any time in your life. But talk about the challenges if this happens as you get close to retirement and all of the financial things going on at that time of your life.
Well, it is difficult no matter when you have a divorce. It's difficult in the family. It's difficult in the people involved. But especially, heading into retirement or slightly after retirement, because you are a team, and that team, especially if you put together any kind of retirement plan or income plan, it's based on the incomes that are there, and it's based on the two people that are married. And so if we have a divorce, then now we've got to split assets. One spouse, if they're relying just on Social Security, is probably going to have a lot less. So it just is a major upheaval. And then so the other part of that is that there's some things out there that a lot of times people don't think about when it comes to, well, the husband has, or let's just say one spouse has all the retirement assets in their name, right? They worked, all the IRAs or 401ks are theirs, and you can't split them. A lot of times people think, well, I can't split them without tax consequences, or they don't realize there is a tax consequence if you do split them. So I'll just throw this out there so that people know that there are ways around the taxability of splitting retirement accounts. And it's called a QDRO, which stands for Qualified Domestic Relations Order. It's a QDRO. And I would say divorce attorneys should be up on this process and availability, and the process now of speaking with somebody that is one of the things that they're looking at. Is they're going to need to they're going through a divorce, they're going to have a QDRO, and they're going to have to create some income from that. So it's tough no matter when you do it. In retirement, it's just like been together for so long, and now it's a huge change and a huge obstacle to overcome.
Certainly, some tough things to think about here. Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, going through our top 5 list of taboo topics in retirement. 863-285-3815 is the number to call to reach Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services if you're looking for a little guidance on some of these tough areas of retirement. That's 863-285-3815. Number 3 on the list is religion, and I'll give a quick example of how this might come into play. We won't spend a lot of time on this one, Philip, but it might not make financial sense for someone to tithe, but it's important for them to give something to their church. How do you handle making financial recommendations while also respecting someone's religious beliefs?
Well, Jen, religion, when it comes to their money, it is one of those fine lines you have to walk. I mean, I know. I mean, we've always believed in tithing and that type of thing for our church. And so I get it. Here's where I've had to have some tough discussions with clients, because they're working and all of a sudden they retire, and in retirement, our income declines. And so they want to keep giving at the same level they were when they were working. And that can have a damaging impact to their income plan down the road. Now, it's great for the church or the organization, but it can be detrimental to the retiree. So because here's what they don't realize. Yep, Social Security, that's income. Their pension, if they have a pension, that's income. But that other leg that they're drawing money from, that may or may not actually be income. It could just be savings, right? And so it's kind of like already tax money. It's already tithes money. So, sometimes it's hard to get people to see that and realize that because of the emotional tie there. And so it's something we have to walk carefully through. But as the financial coach, retirement coach, and the fiduciary person in the relationship, I've got to ask the hard questions and walk people through the answer and the impact that that's going to bring to them.
Going down to number 2 on our list of taboo topics. Again, it won't spend a lot of time on this because we just have a few minutes left. But number 2 on the list is relationships. Retirement has an impact on your relationship with your spouse, your kids, your grandkids. How important is it to talk about some of this stuff, Philip? Setting boundaries when it comes to the time you're going to spend watching the grandkids, or how much time you're going to spend with your spouse when you're both home all the time.
That's true. And it's got to be more than conversation. You got to take action, right? So you're right. So if if your family all lives in the same town, then all of a sudden you've retired and now the grandkids are left at your doorstep all the time for you to take care of and watch. And so your kids can go do whatever. And for a while, right, we love it, right? So, hey, they're our grandkids. We're spending a lot of time with them. And so I get it. But you got to set up some boundaries for what that's going to look like for our kids and grandkids. The other part, though, is our spouse. We've been working up until retirement, so we're each away from each other for at least 8-10 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're retired, and now we're spending, a lot more time under the same roof. And that can be challenging. That's why we go back to two before this, divorce, right? So this can be a reason that one pops up at this point in the relationship, is because now we have no diversion. We're together. And so that becomes the problem. And so
Right.
we need to have our time. I tell people, not only do we need an income plan, we need a time plan.
Yeah.
And that's part of what needs to happen there in retirement.
That's right. Working our way through the top taboo topics from Forbes magazine, and number one on the list is money. And Philip, this is ironic because we talk about it all the time here on this show, but talk about why some people see money as a taboo topic for retirement, and how do you help people get answers when they worry that they're just being nosy, or maybe they're asking the wrong questions when it comes to money in retirement?
Well, think about it this way. Husband and wife, do they really have that conversation of, do we have enough to retire? Or is it just something we do, right? We're 62, I'm retiring. I'm 67, I'm retiring. Or do we have that discussion? And so nobody wants, or I won't say nobody, a lot of folks don't want to have that discussion of, do I have enough? Because they're afraid of the answer. And so I think that's a question that more people need to have sooner rather than later. So what's sooner? Well, I'm going to say, man, if you're 50 years old and you've not had that discussion, you've not sat down with a financial professional to say, what am I going to need? You've not put together that financial plan or that retirement plan at age 50. You need to do that. You need to know how much, what's it look like? What am I going to have at retirement based on what I'm doing now? So that you know that you're ready to retire, that the money is not going to be the issue for not retiring. So often we don't want to ask. The kids don't want to ask the parents, are you sure? Do you have enough money to retire? Well, kids aren't going to ask their parents that. It's just not going to happen. And so I think that's why money is the number one thing, is because nobody wants to ask the question. Everybody assumes that if you're retiring, that you have enough. And that's not, I can tell you from experience and what I see, that's not always the case. Hey folks, if these top 5 taboos are on your list of things, or if we can help in any other way, that's what we're here for. We are an independent sounding board for you to help you prepare for retirement. Give me a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Give us a call today and let's get started on your retirement.
You've been listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. Remember that number, 863-285-3815. That's all the time we have for this week, but we'll talk to you next time.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.